Today's guest is someone whose voice has been soundtrack to millions of people around the world. From MOBO nominations and international awards to selling over 1 million records independently, Nate James has built his career on talent, resilience, and doing things on his own terms. But behind the music is a story of belief, reinvention, manifestation, and staying true to yourself in an industry that often asks you to be anything but. Today, we are rewinding it all. We're going to talk about the highs, the setbacks, and the moments that almost changed everything, and what success really looks like over an extraordinary career. Nate, welcome to Rewind.
Good morning. How are you?
I am so good. I'm so good. I can't lie. I'm so jealous of the sun and how glamorous you are right now, and we are in inches of rain.
Japan is being very kind to me. I'm over here just at meetings and stuff, and staying with a friend of mine who's also my business partner because I'm developing an app and stuff like that. So I'm basically I thought, well, I'm gonna just fly over and go and see him, and we've had a fabulous time. So here we are in the sunshine.
Amazing.
I'm sending you some sun, hoping it's gonna hit where you are.
I hope so too. We've just came out of obviously a couple of really, really good weeks here,
Yeah.
but manifesting it back,
hmm
which I feel like is going to be the topic for today. We have some incredible news that just broke last night that you have made #1 in the UK, which is fantastic. Can you just talk a wee bit about that? I mean, we'll touch on it further on in the conversation, but can we just say for starters, well done, congratulations.
Yay! Yeah.
Wow, oh my god.
I mean, do you know what? Yeah, so I had a call yesterday from it's a station called Solar Radio, and they're kind of like the go-to tastemaker, if you for soul music and R&B and jazz, and obviously my space to even be in their chart is great. And I went in at number 14, and I saw that a few weeks ago. And I was like, okay, that's decent. You know, I haven't released any music for a while, and the remixes are getting some love. And then went to number 2, and I was like, okay, this is going in the right direction. And then got a call last night. They went to number 1. So, like, as far as like soul music in the UK goes, like being that number 1 spot, that's big business. I'm really, really happy. You can see my grin, you know,
I know.
especially a song that I released, 22 years ago about a breakup that I went through. And it did well and set the tone. Is kind of one of the songs I'm known for. But for it to be re-released, and remixed 22 years later, and to have that kind of response is just you can't ask for more than that. It's great.
Of course. But as I said, we will obviously touch on that a
hmm
little bit on. But I want to start from the start here. So, what was young Nate like? Was music always the plan? What kind of first made you believe that you could actually do this?
Young Nate was a big dreamer, singing in the mirror, and sometimes with a hairbrush. Very bubbly, very happy. I grew up in a very loving household, very musical household. I think, singing along to Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Luther Vandross, Marvin Gaye, all the greats. And sort of, I guess from a young age, without knowing it, I was kind of teaching and learning, all about how they write songs and where they breathe. And I would read the inlay of the CDs and see who played bass and who A&R'd it and who did this and who did backing vocals. And this is before social media. We didn't have access to this information unless you bought the album. So, through the 80s and stuff, I was just doing research basically, but in a really fun way. I think I was singing a Boyz II Men song one day in my room, and my mum was sat on the stairs when I came out of my bedroom to get some water, and she was just crying, and she was like, you just need to do something with this voice. But I'm from a small town in the east of England, so there wasn't really anywhere I could go. There wasn't a stage school, there wasn't like an open mic event or a live music space as such where I could go and practice and get some stage practice and all these kind of things. So I just basically taught myself in my bedroom. I did lots of productions at school, like Fiddler on the Roof and Little Shop of Horrors, and I was like the lead character. I was like Pharaoh and Joseph, with the slapped on foundation and the gold chain made out of cardboard. That like classic primary school, high school hair and makeup and costume. And then when was I? I think I was about 18. I got a call I was with a model agency when I was a teenager, doing like small bits, EastEnders and catalogue shoots and stuff like that. And I got a call from my agent because I'd said I want to sing, and I know you've got an office in London, so if you hear of anything, give me a shout. And then I got a shout from a producer from London who was looking for an R&B mixed race singer, and I was the only one on the books. So I went down to London and I sang for him, and he said that my voice was great, but it wasn't quite strong enough to be a solo performer, but he wanted to put me into a group. So he was like, hang tight and I'll come back to you. No, I don't hang tight, Mollie. I chase, and I'm like, hey, it's just me, like a little meerkat, like just, because just keeping yourself present in front of someone's mind, not bugging by any chance, but just, keeping myself in the loop. And then the group was formed and we signed with Warner Brothers Music, which is obviously a huge major label. And we probably spent 3 years together traveling and going to the parties, and we met Left Eye and Puff Daddy and Mystique and the Sugar Babes, and we were just these new boys in town. And then the label kind of fell apart. We got dropped, and I was pretty destroyed, at 18, 19 years old. My dreams are over. It's all done. I hate the industry, like real, like climbing the walls in tears at home at my parents' house. Because I'd moved out of home and I'd, taken that leap. So to move back home with my tail between my legs and then having to face people, no one was nasty. But I think unless you've lived that, if you've seen your dream come to a reality and you've had a taste of it, and then you have to move back to a small town, which I love Woodbridge, where I'm from. But I think that it was just a little bit of having to swallow pride and having to pivot and readjust. And I was like, right, I'm going to go and work in a hotel. I'm a good waiter. I'm happy to do that for the rest of my life. And then a manager found me again, and I became a songwriter, and I was writing for Blue and all these people, Lamar, Craig David. I was writing songs for them, and I was like, I don't want to give them my songs. They're my songs. And so my first album, Set the Tone, was born, and here we are 22 years later.
Amazing. That is just, first of all, the first thing, I know there's so much to go into that. What is your favourite Stevie Wonder song? Because I'm a huge Stevie Wonder fan. I'm a huge, like, jazz, soul type person. So what's your favourite?
Do you know what? I think Overjoyed is one of my favourite ones to sing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Superstition and Science Still to Live. I mean, he's got so many hits. It's really tough. That's a really tough
So
question. But I think Overjoyed is one of my favourite ones to sing. And I love Stevie because, when he writes songs, he doesn't really want you to sing them again or duplicate them. So he makes them very technical with the chords and the way that learning to sing Overjoyed, I was like, where is he going with this track? Like, what is he doing with his voice? And trying to imitate that or at least learn from it was tricky. But yeah, I think Overjoyed is probably my favourite. Yeah.
Well, obviously we talked there about, it is such a volatile industry. There is obviously like ups and downs with it. Did you have that moment? Obviously we've all had twists and turns at very, very early stages in our career, and we do think, oh, that's it for me. I've had it, this is it. Did you ever have like a defining moment where everything did change and you went, no, I am on the right path. I'm not choosing a different life. This was made for me.
Yeah, I think so my manager at the time, Anthony, the guy that came to find me in my hometown, and we became the Batman and Robin pair that we still are to this day as friends. I think when I started to record Set the Tone, and he was like, look, you've got this advances of money from the publishing company for a song being songwriter, and obviously the money from the band as well. So I had the money to kind of make my own record, keep hold of my masters, and just do things my way, which at the time in 2004 was very unheard of. And people thought I was quite arrogant because I was choosing to not sell my rights to a record label to get 20% of my income back. Like, why would anyone do that? Still do it today. So I think when the album was released, and I think I went back to my hometown and I did like a album signing at HMV. I think it was then I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. But I think it's because I'd been through the major label machine. I'd learned at a very young age how cutthroat and how brutal this industry can be, and that you're a product, and the product has to produce money. And if you don't, then, you get cut, literally.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I think doing it on my own terms and at my own pace was really great. And Anthony was an amazing mentor in that. I mean, he was kind of winging it himself because he hadn't done it before either. So we were both kind of learning on the job. And I think then when I went on tour and I was in Japan and I was going all around Europe and then I was in Canada, then South America, I was like, okay, this is, I love how music is such a universal language. Everyone loves music. And I think that when you see the music travel and then the music travels ahead of you and it takes you with it and you go to these amazing places and you see all these beautiful countries and the cultures, the food, the people, like it's just, I think for the first tour I did, I think I supported Simply Red around Europe, and it was an expensive tour because obviously I was independent, had to pay for everything myself, the tour bus, the band, the hotels, all that stuff. But I did it because I was like, Simply Red is one of my favorite artists. The era that I grew up in, Mick Hucknall was, forefront and doing amazing things. So I think, yeah, when the first album came out and I saw how it connected with people and how, how nice people were about it, like, who's this new soul cat from? A lot of people thought I was American as well, which was quite interesting. But I think the sound of the album was very Motown. So they were like, and then I go into radio interviews in London and they're like, oh, you're one of us. And I'm like, so, yeah, I think once the album started to do what it's supposed to do, that was pretty cool. But I think, I mean, obviously we'll talk about it. You know, I was hiding my sexuality at the time. I was living a double life. There was a lot of, I was living my best life, but it was also a lie. And that didn't sit right with me. And that, you know, just, I was drinking a lot. I was going out a lot. I was partying a lot. And I was just kind of trying to escape the stress and the excitement and the enjoyment and the overwhelm. I was just so overwhelmed, I think. And didn't probably deal with it in the best way. But I was a machine and I kept on going because that's what you do. You know, it's only me that can go out and sing my songs because they're my songs. It's my albums. Yeah, it wasn't. It was an amazing time in my life, but I wasn't in the best shape I could have been in, I think is the way to put it.
That's one of, I think, I mean, obviously your career is expansive and fantastic, but the thing that I think for me is that, like you were saying there, the retained ownership of your recordings and building your career independently instead of following that traditional label route. I don't, obviously, the most kind of popular version of that right now is we've heard about Taylor Swift buying back her masters and all this kind of thing, and this is obviously a massive thing for her. Why is that ownership now? Obviously, I get it, but for people listening to that, why is that ownership so important? Is it a business decision or is it an emotional one? Do people probably tell you it was a mistake? And would you make the same choice if you were in that position again?
I think owning your masters, you know, it's owning. It's like doing a painting and then having someone cut it up into chunks and give you a slither of it back. You know, your masters, that's the end result of a lot of hard work, a lot of emotion, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, recording sessions, late nights, you know. And so why would you give away your masterpiece to someone else, for want of a better masterpiece? There we go. Why would you give away your masterpiece to someone else when you can keep a hold of it and choose how you put it out into the world?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I've had some great talks for my new album now with labels already, because you know I haven't released an album in 17 years. But I'm much smarter now than I was then. I did a master's in music business management. Like, I can do my own contracts. I know copyright law. I know marketing strategies. Like, everything that you're about to see of this new album is all me. And I've got a great team of people, obviously, that I work with. You know, we're in a very different world now to back then. I mean, you look at like Salt and Pepper. Obviously we know who they are, but like they've been fighting with Universal for years now to get their masters back. And Universal are like, oh, well, you know, if you read the small print, it says that da 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 da. You know, but back then, you know, people were starry-eyed. They wanted that fame and fortune. They wanted success, and they didn't necessarily take the steps and take the time to read the contract they were signing to understand that in 25 years' time, they're still going to own this and you will not own this. And, you know, Taylor Swift, you know, look at Ray. I mean, she was dropped from Universal and now she's one of the biggest artists on the planet independently, you know. And it is difficult for independent artists, don't get me wrong. Like, there's, you know, nothing is handed to you on a silver platter. You've got to be heard above the noise. There's 100,000 tracks released a day. That's too much. You know, so what are you doing to be heard? What are you doing to stand out from the crowd? So, yeah, I think retaining master ownership is great because you have full control of your music and how it is going to be exploited, how it's going to be released, how it's going to be received. And, you know, with a major label, I'm not downing major labels. They are great at what they do. But, you know, you've got layers upon layers of people and departments that have to sign off this and have to approve this. And, oh, you need this song on there. Like, no, I've made an album of work that I wanted to make. You don't get to dictate to me how that's going to sound. This is my record. These are my feelings, you know? So I think that creative control and having the master ownership is really important. If you can do that, then do it.
It's fascinating because I mean I do a lot of work myself with like IP law and stuff like that. So that initial, like, you're right. Why would you want to create something that is so raw and so emotional and so personal to then sell it to only get a sliver of it back?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes no sense.
It's like, make it make sense. Logically, it makes no sense. But obviously, the money that record labels, I mean, they have a lot less money now than they used to. I mean, they're back in the days of, there was like, there were 7 major labels years ago. Then there were 4, and now I think there's 3. But, you know, the machine that is Sony, the machine that is Warner, the machine that is Universal, like, you know, they are powerhouses still. But I think that artists and performers and musicians and writers have got smarter about, you know,
Yeah.
how they handle their business. And also, look at us now. Like, we have access now. You know, back in 2004, we had MySpace, if you remember that.
Yep. Yep.
iTunes was just about like becoming a thing. It was baby iTunes. There was no Spotify, there was no Instagram, there was no Facebook. Performers and artists didn't have this connection, this ability to act. They didn't have, and fans and lovers of music didn't have access to their favorite artists. So now, I've got a mailing list. I'll do a blast out probably tomorrow on my mailing list saying the new single's out on Friday, for example. And I'm like, that's gone out to X amount of people, because I've gathered that data. Whereas, back in the day, it was like you would go and buy an album and you would support the artist, having not met them, having not spoke to them, and you go and see them live and show, and there was this whole kind of mystery around artists. Like you just sort of reach out and, oh my God, they touched my hand, But now you can, drop me a DM and I'd be like, morning, babe, how you doing? You know what I mean? Like it's just that, I guess the mystery's gone, but the connection is so much better.
So, touching on that, then, I try to think of as a kid in bands and things like that I liked. I still thought I was going to marry Brian McFadden from Westlife when I was.
And Kerry could only beat you to it, eh?
It never happened. But they did call their daughter Mollie, so Anyway, but you think about that and like you're saying, the connectivity, and then obviously becoming a teenager and loving the bands that you listen to, and thinking that I got into it and I thought My Chemical Romance was the most amazing thing ever. But you get into that kind of thing, and like you're saying it, there used to be a level of the only time you actually got to, I'm saying, being intimate with the person, the band that you loved, was at a gig. It was that kind of thing. Was it an album signing, all that type of thing. Now, obviously, like you're saying, we are one step away from connectivity with any person in the world that we want to be, whether they have like social media or not. So do you feel like that changed the industry in terms of how your music is perceived? Do you get that instant feedback, or what's that? You'll find out on Friday when it's released, but what is that like? Is there a point of, because I loved when obviously Ray was releasing, Where's My Husband? She teased that little bit first, that kind of riff that she's going with, and then she's leading with it a bit more. She's saying, do we like this? Do we not like this? Obviously she's got it planned months in advance, a great marketing tactic, but it's getting that little bit of involvement with the fans that almost make the fans feel like they're helped you create something. Is that something, do you think that is a great thing, or do you think it's maybe too much interaction? What's the
I think it's great. I think the great thing about social media now and having that connection to, music lovers out there is that we get to control the narrative. We get to control how our music's rolled out, how we tease it. Yes, obviously there's a plan. There's probably a 6-week marketing plan in place, and we're going to start with a little teaser of this, a little teaser of that, a little bit more. But the underlying thing is that everyone wants to feel like they found that artist, whether it's a record label executive or it's a listener out there or a music lover. They want to be like, we were the first to hear this. And now the beautiful thing is, like when I start rolling out the music for my new album, like I've got hundreds of thousands of videos and clips of me recording the album in Italy. So I'm going to start with, hey, come into the studio with me and hear me lay down the first vocals for the first single. And it's just to me, it's like, I'm a storyteller, right? Whether it's in song or it's obviously you see my Instagram. I love to tell stories. I hope that I inspire. I hope that I educate. I hope that I can connect you with someone that's going to help you on your way. And those are kind of my reasons for being here. I've decided I love to connect people and watch that relationship flourish. But I think what's great about social media is we are able to control the narrative. It is, also the other side of it is the trolls and the people who want to see you do badly and, spend time of their day just sitting at a laptop, just hurling out abuse at people because they've got nothing else better to do. If that's what gives you jollies, then carry on. But you won't be getting to me. You won't be affecting me. But not everyone's got a thicker skin as I have, and hasn't been through what I have been through to have a thick skin. But yeah, no, I think that the sharing the journey and involving your fan base and the people that love your music, I hate saying fan base, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
Is so important because people feel like, they share that joy with you. Like last night, I posted that video about the number one on Solar Radio on the rhythm chart. And I woke up this morning to hundreds of comments of people saying, we're so proud of you. Like, you fucking did it. Sorry, excuse my language. But just that. And I didn't go online to see the comments, but I just obviously opened my phone and saw the notifications. And I was like, what's going on here? And I just saw it. And it's just, it's just such a lovely feeling when people have known you then and know you now, or just discovering you, and they can share that joy with you. It's an incredible thing to feel that kind of love.
It has. I mean, it must be because it's like you have that instant access to a community. So, do you kind of wish, I mean, obviously a career spanning over 20 years, you know, you've sold over 1 million albums, you've had international success, you've been nominated for a MOBO, you know, you've won awards all across Europe. Do you wish that the sort of community was there at the time? You know, I mean, because I don't know about you, because if I won anything, the first thing I would want to tell is the people that supported me getting to that
Yeah.
point. So do you wish it was the same?
Yeah, so I think back in 2004, like I said, there was MySpace, and it's really funny. I think I logged into my MySpace account a while ago, and I had like 3.5 million friends. But I was like, who who even uses MySpace anymore? I think Justin Timberlake bought it a while ago and was going to revamp it with MySpace music and something. Anyway, back in those days, you could communicate, and you had your top friends and all that sort of stuff. I do wish that, I mean, not necessarily Spotify, because it's not a very good place to be. But I wish that streaming platforms were around then. I wish that social media was more of a thing, because nowadays, brand partnerships and companies that want to work with you look at your numbers, they look at your followers, and obviously I'm doing okay. But were I to have Instagram back in 2004, I'd be in the Kim Kardashian realms right now. And I don't care about numbers, I care about connection. But obviously the numbers mean more connection and further reach. So it would have been amazing to have these platforms back then and to have that kind of connection. But then I just laughed with my friend last night. I was like, I had a wild time in the 90s and the early 2000s, and there's no evidence, and I'm fine with that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had a great time. I lived my best life, but there's no proof whatsoever. Might get tagged in the occasional photograph, like a throwback Thursday or whatever. But like, it's, so I'm like, it's kind of, it's more of a, yeah, I'm happy with how things are now. Would I have been happy with them, existing before, back in the beginnings of my career? Yeah, because I would have built a bigger fan base, mailing list, bigger connections now. But I'm doing all right.
No, absolutely. And like you said, back in the 90s, I mean, I remember, I mean, I was very early 90s kid, so I remember it more the kind of 2000s. And, you would get, the magazines, and it would be like, all the, for me, it was always remembering like Mary Kate and Ashley stumbling out of a club somewhere. And I always used to think, oh my God, they're so glamorous, but obviously, like you're saying, if there's no evidence of it, it didn't happen. So that's
Exactly.
so, as we said, we've talked about how long your career has spanned over. Every career has obviously got quieter sessions. How do you navigate the sort of the ebbs and flows of that? And what kept pulling you back and saying, no, like, I mean, you've now released an album after 17 years. I mean, what's it like going from, we'll talk about Lola's theme in a minute, but, what's it like going from, because I really want to get into that. We'll talk about that in a minute, but what's it like going from something that is super high and obviously iconic, going through spans decades, to then maybe navigating your own sort of things and go, right, okay, no, this is the time that I come back.
I think, as I said before, I was riding a wave for a time. Obviously, I was really good friends with Amy Winehouse, and I made some great friends along the way. Some are here, some are not. But all through that, I wasn't spiraling, but I wasn't the best version of myself, and I'm aware of that now. I think that managing the ebbs and the flows. I mean, I drank rum. I think the thing is, and I say it flippantly, but it wasn't a good place to be. I think the thing is, back then there weren't these conversations about wellness. There weren't these conversations about mental health. There wasn't support for that either. And even though sauna and cold plunge, for example, have been around since the dawn of time, but as far as it being a thing and being known as a thing you can do to keep balance and to look after your body and your mind, we didn't have access to that, or we weren't aware of it. So I think that it's difficult. It was difficult to navigate the level of success I was experiencing. Now I'm definitely much better, because I've been on this wellness journey of mine for probably 2 or 3 years now. And, every week I'll go and do yoga, I'll do meditation, listen to affirmations in the morning, I'll go to a sauna or a cold plunge. I mean, whatever. I think, yeah, I feel like I'm much better equipped now to deal with what's coming. And as far as knowing when it's time to release, as far as knowing when is a good time to release it, I think it was just a feeling. I think that I was like, do you know what? I've not released a record in a long time. Loads of my mates, my friends, my actual mates were like, when you put some new music out? And I'm like, I've been putting music out. Like, no, we need an album. I'm like, all right, fine. And I'd been working on this project Initially, it was going to be called In My Skin from a track that I wrote out in Nashville a few years ago. And I realized, I was like, you know what, I'm really happy in my life. I've found my person. He's amazing. And I can say that out loud now and feel very proud. And, you know, that had a huge effect. Jared and my relationship was a huge inspiration for this album, because it's kind of before Jared, now, and then the future. So it's a real story from start to finish. And it's just, you know, to be able to say that at 46 and be very proud. And I don't care about, you know, any negative reaction to that. Like, not many people can say they've found their person in their life, regardless of their gender, or, you know. So to say that I found mine and to be happy in that situation is, you know, we write love songs, we write songs about life experience. And for me, I was like, I need to live some years before I can make a new record, because I need to talk about what I've experienced, and hopefully the songs on this new album will get someone else through their difficult times, and they can connect with it and relate to it in whichever way they feel. But yeah, I'm in a good place right now.
That's, I mean, so what does that look like for you even then? So there's two parts to that question. I mean, obviously one, you've talked about, you know, your sexuality in an industry where it wasn't particularly the most welcoming industry when it came to things like that. It's obviously not, even now, it's, yeah, celebrated. We have loads of artists that are openly out, gay, trans, you know, whatever, but there's still a stigma around it, and there's still something that, I hope you don't mind me saying that, you know, somebody that's mixed race and gay, and, you know, there's so much stigma around, if you don't fit what the cookie cutter is from this industry, then, you know, you're more likely to be susceptible to less opportunities, advantages, etc. So how do you balance that between, no, this actually is who I am and I'm so proud of it, which is something that every person on this planet should be able to do. I don't understand why we have a world like that, but being able to go, yep, this is it, and then also balancing, I've had a really great career, but now I'm actually looking after me. This, like, is the most authentic version of you.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I came out to my parents, and obviously they're very protective of me.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had conversations, or they had conversations before I was born, about having a child, being a black man and a white woman. So to be a product of, you know, a beautiful mixture of culture is wonderful. Me and my brother both. And when I told them I was gay, the reaction was kind of, "Are you trying to make your life difficult?" Because you're already in your own lane, being
Yeah.
of two different races, you know, two different
Yeah,
heritage.
of course.
And now you want to add this into the mix as well. And I was like, well, you know, it's not necessarily, it's not like a choice. Like, I'm just telling you my truth. You know, obviously we joked about it, and we joke about it still, but they had a point. You know, from the industry side, you know, my manager was incredible back when I first started, and he, you know, that I was gay, and I told him. But coming out to him was almost like coming out to my parents again, because it was a relationship as well. It was, you know, that's my wingman, and I was like, got something to tell you. Here we go again. You know, so, but, you know, some of the labels and some conversations that were had were, you know, Nate's a soul singer, he can't come out. You know, he can't be that. He can be this, and be this in the red velvet jacket, this soul, you know, Casanova, whatever you want to call it. But I was told to lie. And, you know, and living a double life and doing interviews on international, national radio, TV, whatever, and having to think about what you're saying before you say it, so you don't trip yourself up and get found out, and then the press get a hold of it. Like, it's exhausting. Like, it really, really is. And I think, you know, I mean, I've written a book about my journey and about how the industry's changed over the past 20 years, and who's enabled me to be myself now and to not even apologize for it, you know? And it was fascinating, the research that I did for this book. And, you know, your Freddie Mercury's, your George Michael's, your Prince and your Bowie's with the gender fluidity. Like, there was so many iconic characters out there who, I don't want to say paved the way, it sounds really cheesy, but they did. You know, I mean, you know, David Bowie effectively invented an alter ego so he could wear makeup and he could be this flamboyant character, but he was still David Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, and so all that kind of, it's very inspiring to see that. And, you know, I think, like you say, being anything other than straight now in music and in general is celebrated in most places. You can still get your hand cut off or your head cut off some places as well. You know, we know that. But yeah, I think it's like, things are moving in the right direction. But then you look at what happened in Berlin the other day, and it's like, okay, so we're still stuck in this this not so nice place when it comes to celebrating love and celebrating who you are. So yeah, does that answer the question?
Absolutely, absolutely. That kind of then brings me on to kind of one of my last sort of segments of this about creativity. Obviously, I want to talk about Lola's theme because I love it.
I could chat to you for hours, babe.
I love this. This is just honestly, got like a list of questions and I will run out of time. But so I'm probably going to send you a message like, can you just answer this for me?
Yes, fine.
But talk about Lola's theme, and then where does the inspiration for songs come from you? Does it come from? I mean, obviously you've talked about this. This new album is like a past, a present, and a future. You've had to discover life. You've had to live it in order to be able to tell a story about it. Is it? Do you find it quite therapeutic, and is it something that's quite cathartic? And that's, I mean, that's your medium to tell your story to the world. So, what's the process like for you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was teaching last year at LCCM, this music college in London, I said to my students, your songs are your stories. And I said to them, if you're, I wake up at 3 a.m. and I call it a gift from source. Like I come up with lyrics and melodies at 3 a.m. I have no idea where they came from, but I write them down and record them. They've come from somewhere or something and they will become a song. And that happened a lot with this new record because of what I'm trying to do with it. I'm trying to, push that self-acceptance, self-love, agenda. And I said to my students, like, if you don't want to release the record because you don't want to deal with negativity, just record the songs for yourself and listen to them because you've got them out your system. You've released that emotion. You've talked about that. You've talked about that situation in your life that maybe you couldn't speak about in real life. So talk about it in song and just listen to that song and give yourself a pat on the back for recording it and listening to it. And hopefully that will help you get through the situation you're trying to deal with. So yeah, it is very therapeutic for me. There's, things I talk about on the record that I probably won't talk about in interviews because me getting out of my system and recording it means it's parked. I've dealt with it and it's done.
Yeah.
I don't need to keep going back to it. It wasn't my proudest moment or it wasn't the best time for me. So my process is, I might go into the studio with an idea that came to me the night before randomly, or I'll go into a studio and someone will start playing guitar or piano and I'll be like, I call them doodles. So I do lyric and melody doodles and I write them in my phone or I write them on my laptop or a piece of paper. And then maybe a couple of hours later, we've got a full song, vocals, backing vocals, the works. It's definitely a gift and I'm very aware of it and very grateful for it. I've written debrief before where you get told like, I don't know, Jess Glynn or Sam Smith wants an up-tempo, housey R&B thing, whatever. And I've done some cool songs, that have been pitched out, haven't necessarily landed, but they're out there in the ether, in the universe, and they'll get picked up by someone. But yeah, the process, there's no hard and fast way. I think that people, everyone has their method and their way and whatever suits. But for me, my phone's full of lyric ideas and voice notes. Like literally probably 2/3 of my memory is doodles. And I'll go in, like if I'm going to studio, I'll be like, right, let me have a listen to this on the way there on the tube, for example, or on the train or the flight, whatever. And I'll be like, right, I'm going to use that today, or I go in there with the title idea and then we just work from that. And then Lola's theme, because I know you want to know about this. So when I was first with Anthony, my former manager and my friend who did the whole independent music thing with me, that whole Batman and Robin scenario, Anthony knew someone at Positiva, the record label that released it, EMI, and he'd heard on the grapevine that these lads, Simon and Max, who were shapeshifters back then, were looking for a vocalist to sing this "I'm a different person," this lyric, this hook that they'd sampled. So I went down to Ladbroke Grove, and I mean, this is back when I was smoking a lot of cigarettes and my voice wasn't what it should be, but I still managed to hit the notes. And they were, obviously it was pitched up because, Michael Jackson's gone. Like, I think he'd be the only man on the planet who could hit that note full voice and, make it work. So I was like, well, I'll go as high as I can and you can do the rest of the work. So yeah, we recorded the track and I think it was released on a white label and the feedback was amazing with my vocal on it, obviously, as well. And then I got the call saying, hey, so EMI have decided they want a female on the lead, but they're keeping your backing vocals. And like, as a backing vocalist, I mean, That song was number one for like what 9, 10 weeks, something ridiculous. It was the gift that kept on giving. I mean, I got a fat royalty check just for being the backing vocalist. But of course, at the time it was released, I wasn't named as a performer. I wasn't named as an artist or a feature on the vocal because it was Cookie, who's a friend of mine. She's lovely. So I was like, so that's why. And it's so funny when I mean, even now I'll post it just now and again, a little reminder that this is who you're listening to. And the amount of people are like, I had no idea, that's such a banger. Like, how dare you keep this secret? And I'm like, it's not a secret. Like, if you Google, you'll see it's there. My name is, as a performer now. But yeah, it was amazing. I kind of wish that I had been able to do more with that song. Maybe like gone with Cookie and with the boys and sang the chorus with her and like been a bit more part of the promo. But Janet Cookie, she was the lead vocalist, and they did lots of shows together and had a great time. But even now, when I play that song, dun, 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 like when I hear that intro and the horns, I'm like, this is still a great song.
It's a banger. It's an absolute banger. When you think about it and you think about how many times you've heard it, and whether it's TV shows, movies, it's everywhere, and it's just synonymous to me with just that time as well, and like the era we're in. It's just gives me good feelings. With that, then we're obviously getting to the end of it, and there's two questions. One question that I always ask everyone, and I'll get to that, but the one that I kind of wanted to ask is, we've talked about your career, who you were at the start versus who you are now. Is there something that, say maybe 25-year-old Nate wouldn't recognise you now? Or do you think, what would you tell him if he said, like, this is what your journey is going to be like, it's going to be a roller coaster, you're going to enjoy it, but what would you say to him, and what would you thank your previous self for? I don't want to ask anybody that, but I'm quite curious for you.
I would thank my younger self for not giving up, for persevering, for muddling and fumbling his way through life to get to 46 now.
Yeah.
I always say this, it's so much about the journey. I wouldn't change a thing I've done or experienced or lived, because it's made me who I am today. It's character building. The rough times and the difficult times. To win off the back of that is an amazing feeling. It builds strength. I just try and look at the positives. I mean, I don't think I've necessarily wronged anyone in my life in particular. I haven't burnt any bridges unless they've chosen to walk away, and I've just opened the door and said, see ya. But I think, I would say thanks for not giving up, because there were definitely times when I wanted to give up on a lot more than music, Yeah. But music wasn't the cause of that. I think, my sexuality and I didn't like myself for a time, because of who I had feelings for, So that's a bit dark, but yeah, no, I want to thank my younger self for just being who he was, getting through it, and coming out the other side. Because now I get to be who I really am, and and not have to hide anything, and it's just a very freeing feeling.
I can imagine. Well, the last couple of questions are: the first one is, if you could sum up your journey in one word, what would it be? And then tell everybody what's coming up for you. I obviously know what's coming up for you, but tell everybody what's coming up for you and where to find you.
My journey has definitely been finding myself and then finding the power in that.
That's going to be the title for this, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that one.
It took a long time to get to this place in my life, and I'm 47 next month. I feel like I'm still 25, and I live like I'm 25 because I don't, like I say, I don't care about numbers. But I think that once you find yourself and you're happy with yourself, then just revel in that. It's a great thing. What's coming up for me? So, Set the Tone, the 2026 remixes are released tomorrow, so July 31st. Yeah.
Yep.
The first single from my new album, The Man I Am, is released on September the 4th. It's called For My People, because my people have got me to where I am. Thank you very much. The new album is going to be available to pre-order from end of September. I am going to be doing lots of live shows. I've got a headline show on August 29th down in Surrey. Full band, new music, old music, a few covers. It's going to be a hell of a night. So there's still tickets available if you want to come to that. What else is happening? The book will be out in spring next year. It's called History of Music and Queerness. The documentary I've made, Same But Different, will be out at the start of next year as well. And my podcast will be coming out in October this year as well. I've been working very hard for the past 3 years on a lot of great stuff, and it's all starting to come out there into the world, and I'm very happy.
Amazing. Oh my God, you have been so busy. I'm jealous of your work ethic even to just get all that out there. Amazing, Nate. I'm so happy. This has given me the nice warm and fuzzy tingles. I'm so happy with it. I just love your story. I think it's one of the best I think I've ever heard. So thank you so much. And
Thank you.
that was incredible. I have nothing. Normally, I have some really kind of cool, funky thing to wrap it up with, but you know, you're the cool, funky thing to wrap it up with. So I'm just going to leave it with that. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another incredible episode of the WYND Pod. And Nate, thank you so much. Stay tuned for the
Thank
next
you, my
one.
love.
See you later.
See you soon.
Bye.